Hey everybody, this is the Stuff I Heard podcast, and I'm your host, Josh Peak. I'm doing this all by myself, by the way. Hope you guys are appreciating my effort. This is episode 135, and I'm going to hit record. Hey everybody, this is your host again, Josh Peak. This is episode 135. Today is August the 28th, 2019. I don't know if anybody's seen it yet. I forwarded on my Facebook, and I'm sure lots of people have forwarded it on Twitter. Bert Kreischer doing a hip-hop dance. He had talked to Joe Rogan and Ari Shaffir and Tom Segura about doing a hip-hop competition for Sober October, which is coming up. I mean, we're at the end of August here, and they've basically got 1 month to agree and decide on what their challenge is going to be. For the last 3 years, they've done this Sober October, and the whole thing was because Joe and Tom and Ari were concerned that Bert was going to die, basically, because he was drinking so much. They were like, "Listen, we're really concerned about our friend. We need to do something to help him. You know, we got to show support or something." And they had heard about Sober October, and they're like, "We got to stand behind Bert. We got to motivate him, do whatever we got to do." So they came up with this idea of doing it together as friends. And it's a funny interview to listen to if you go back and listen to Joe's podcast on the Joe Rogan Experience, where, like I said, this was 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago. So you got to do some research and figure out which number it is. I'm not going to do that for you. Come on, if you want to listen, you'll find it. Just, you can go on YouTube and watch the videos. They're funny. Joe Rogan Experience, Sober October. Just type in some of the guys' keywords. They started off with just the idea of the fact that they weren't going to drink. And they were going to make it fun. They were going to do it as friends. They were going to make it fun. They were going to on social media and razz each other about it. And then they're like, "No, we feel like we should do some kind of physical challenge combined with this." Because Bert really motivates himself with physical challenges. He likes to make grandiose decisions about, "Oh, I can do this and I can do that." And in a weird way, he feels like if he says it out loud, he'll make himself do it. Which is understanding. It is understandable. I have done stuff like that in the past. I have said, "I'm going to do this." And then I sort of feel like I'm holding myself responsible because I've proclaimed it out loud so that other people can hear it. And then I feel like, okay, if I don't follow through, then I'm just an asshole. I mean, I gotta do whatever it takes to get this done. Most people don't follow through with what they say they're going to do. Bert's not that guy. Bert's the guy that says, "I'm going to run a marathon with no training," and then goes out and does it. He's the guy that says, I'm gonna ride a bike 70 miles to help raise money for this charity, and I'm not gonna train for it. I'm just gonna have my bike shipped there. He talks about this on a podcast where he did a charity bike ride, rode 70 miles from like somewhere in Philly to Atlantic City. Had ridden the bike. This was his third time riding the bike. He makes these grandiose statements and then goes, "Well, I said I was going to do it. I got to follow it up." Who do you know like that? Who do you know in your family or your circle of friends is like that? That says, "I'm going to do this thing that I don't know anything about, but I'm going to do it." For me, I don't have to look far because all I got to do is find a mirror. I do stuff like that. I say, "I'm going to do this," and I do it. When I was younger, I did that kind of stuff. When I was younger, I don't know how I got into it, but I got into a trend. It may have all stemmed around being in the Marine Corps. Because in the Marine Corps, you follow through with everything. I mean, there is no "Oh, I forgot," or "Oh, I'll get to it later." If you have something to do, you do it then, and that's it. That was the biggest adjustment that I had to get used to when I got out of the military, was people saying they're going to do something and then not following through. It drove me absolutely crazy. In the Marine Corps, we were all one unit. If you had a job to do, everybody did their job, and you knew they were going to do their job. Even if they weren't great at it, they were going to try really hard. And in the civilian world, that's not exactly the case. You got a lot of people who say they're going to do something and they don't follow through. But I think that's when it started. I think that's when it started for me. And over the years, I guess I have lived that life enough to make impressions upon people. When I was working I'm not even going to say what company. I was working for a company, and I'd made friends with this guy, and along the way I found out that they were going to have their first kid. And he told me, he said, I'm going to name my son Gabriel after you. And I was like, excuse me? He said, I'm naming him Gabriel. And I talked to my wife about it, and she agrees. And he said, of all the people I've known in my life, you're the person that tells me, I'm going to do this, and you do it. And I'm going to do that, and you do it. And he said, and it made an impression on me. For those of you who don't know, Gabriel is my middle name. But he said it made an impression on me. It made a difference in my life because it made me realize that I wasn't being accountable and I didn't follow through with the things I said I was going to do. And I wanted a son, when we found out we were having a son, I wanted a son who was going to be that, who was going to do that, who was going to follow through with everything he said he was going to do. Someone to be admired, someone to be accountable, someone to be a man amongst men. Kind of got me choked up when he said that. I was like, wow, really? That's how you see me? Interesting. And it sort of made me look at my existence differently, because at the time, I felt like I was just a young man trying to figure life out. I was in my mid-20s, and he was going through this and told me this, and it really impacted me. That's the first time I'd ever heard anybody say that about me. And I don't know, him shining a light on it made me realize, oh yeah, I do live that kind of life. I am that kind of person. I'm the kind of person that says, hey, I'm going to build a table out of that piece of wood. I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to build one. I'm going to build a chair out of these scraps of wood. I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. Hey, I'm going to start a podcast. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm sure I can figure it out. Hey, I'm going to do, you name it, whatever. When I proclaim that I'm going to do something, I follow through. And Bert's like that, and that's why I admire Bert a lot. Listen, his friends can joke, and they do this Sober October challenge, and they talked about it ahead of time. We're going to do, that first year, we're going to do 15 hot yoga classes. Hot yoga classes are like 90 minutes long, and they crank the temperature up in the place really hot so that people sweat even more. And it's brutal, and it's aggravating. I haven't done it, I've heard them talk about it. But they do this, and all of them participate, and it's fun because they can razz each other about, you better hurry up, I've got more than you, and we're getting towards the end of the month, Joe, you better hurry up, you got to do 9 in a row, stuff like that. And it made it fun to listen to a bunch of friends who were basically helping each other out. They sort of got Joe into not smoking weed for the month, and they laid off everything. No drugs, no booze, nothing. Just good, clean living, and having a physical challenge, and being able to hang out with their friends and razz each other and that kind of stuff. And it was fun as a listener to listen to. So, the following year, of course, they had a new challenge. Tom Segura came up with this thing where they wear these bands across their chest. It's called MyZone. He found it somewhere online where it registers your heart rate. And they're like, all right, we're going to do the same thing as far as the no drugs, no booze. And we're going to do it for the whole month. And we're also going to have a challenge where we get to physically challenge each other for who can have their heart rate up, at the highest percentage for most of the month. And of course, this fell right into Joe's lap because he's a fitness guy. And Bert started off right away of, you guys are going down, you don't understand, I'm an elite athlete. And that was the month that he decided that he was going to run a marathon with no training. And he did that. He also got into doing a half triathlon thing. He bought a bike. That was one of the first times he ever rode the bike. But he did it. Like he said, I'm going to do this. And he did it. He followed through. He didn't win the challenge. Of course, Joe Rogan is, on that other level of physical specimen. And plus it's right in his wheelhouse of, I got to overcome and I got to fight the inner bitch and I got to be, I got to push myself past where everybody else has limits. I mean, there's something broken in his brain, that's like, I have the ability, all I got to do is push myself that much harder. And we all know somebody like that too. Like I'm looking at him in the mirror. I do that quite often. It may not look like it because I'm sitting here at a podcast table, probably 30 pounds overweight, but I'm that kind of guy also. Of I can push past whatever I'm feeling as far as pain. I can push past whatever I feel in exhaustion. If I have a goal, I'm going to push past it. And I have done that all my life. Some things are just genetic. That is just genetic. But we all know people like that. We all know people that if we challenge them to something physical, they're either going to die trying or they're going to defeat us. They're going to push past whatever normal levels you have, and they're going to defeat us. I'm not a fast person. I'm not quick. I've never been quick. But I will outwork most people. And sometimes that's what it takes. There's a lot of people in this world that are extremely lazy. A lot of people who expect things to be given to them. They don't understand that sometimes you have to earn it. Most of the times you have to earn it. And that takes effort. So, anyway, they're getting ready for the 3rd annual Sober October, which they sort of curtailed the name now, and it's like Sober October, B-E-R-T, which is kind of cute. And Bert and Tom Segura are best friends, and they talked on the phone about the fact of, hey, we should do like a hip-hop dance class. Like we could take lessons all month, we could post videos of learning, and we could have like a challenge at the end where we get a dance off. It'd be really fun, and it'd be, a way to get in shape. And he presented the idea, and of course, Joe and Ari were like, nah, I don't want to do that. But Bert followed through. And he said, well, if you guys aren't going to do it, I'm going to do it myself. So he's got a video right now on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on anything that you follow Bert on, or anything anybody follows Bert on. They're reposting it because it's good. There's a young lady that starts off the dance. She does maybe 5 seconds of a dance, and then she does the, a dance off kind of thing where she passes it off to him, and then he takes over dancing. And it's good, it's decent. Listen, he's a big boy, but he can move. And towards the end, he's got a thing where his fall dates of the Body Shots World Tour are scrolling by, and it's good. I mean, I think it's buzzworthy. It's on YouTube as well. If you go on YouTube and just look up Bert's channel, Bert Kreischer, it's on there, and it's good. So check it out. It's funny. Let's talk about Stuff I Heard, because this is the Stuff I Heard podcast, right? So on the podcast, I want to talk about a couple of shows that I've watched. I talked last week about the This Is Us or Better Than Us on Netflix. This is kind of an iRobot-ish version of a female robot in a world where they're trying to make the more advanced version, but they're in Russia and they don't exactly have the resources. So they kind of got a robot android thing from China. The most impressive part about the show, because I've finished the last 8 episodes, there's 16 episodes. I'm not going to give you anything away. The most important part about the show is that the people playing the androids are actors. The main girl does such a good job of doing the robotic movement and not blinking, and the way she speaks is so robotic that you're like, God, they did a good job with this robot. And you're like, wait, that's not a robot, that's a person. Holy cow. The story's good. That's why I kept watching it. The story's actually good. The acting is good, and it would probably be better if it was in Russian and you understood Russian. But it's dubbed into these weird voices, and I swear, Netflix must only have like 4 people that do all of the voices for anything, and whenever they dub something, it's always the same 4 voices, and they're not quite right. Whoever did the ones for that show Dark, it's awful to watch with their voices. I would much rather hear the real person's voice, but Dark is done in German. I don't know German, but I'm sure it's fantastic with their voices that you could hear. Whoever works for Netflix and hires people to do voices, you got to do a better job. I mean, that part here is really crappy. But listen, the Better Than Us show, 16 episodes, it's sci-fi, it's really good, it's going to be easy to watch. You're going to start off going, this is stupid, wait, this is actually pretty good. I know, because I did that. I started out going, what the heck? Wait, this is dumb. Oh wait, no, this is actually pretty cool. There's murder, there's mystery, there's intrigue, there's suspense, there's deception, there's lies, there's all kinds of craziness. It's done well. It's actually done really well. So anyway, I watched that, and then my wife and I watched a movie on Netflix called Otherhood. So just picture the word motherhood, but you drop the M, okay? Angela Bassett, Patricia Arquette, and that other lady. What's her name? Julian Huffman, maybe? I think is her name. I don't know. You have to look it up. Anyway, 3 friends. This is how it's advertised. 3 friends later in life. Their kids are grown. The kids have grown up as best friends. So of course the mothers have grown up as best friends. And the 3 kids are now, in their young 20s, living in New York. And Mother's Day rolls around, and all 3 kids forget that it's Mother's Day. They don't call their mom. They don't send them anything. One guy texted his mom. The other 2 just forgot. So they decide, let's go bust in on their lives and remind them why we were their mothers, or that we were their mothers. So they do that. They show up at their houses in New York, and they sort of invade their lives. And it's good. It's a good, funny, interesting show. The one thing that my wife and I got from watching it, because we watched it together, was that Angela Bassett looks great for 61. Holy cow. She could pass for 30. I mean, she's got some good genetics, and she hits the gym all the time. Her arms are incredible. Patricia Arquette did not age well. She was the youngest of the 3, and she's had a rough life. But holy cow, Angela Bassett, you are keeping it together, girl. Man. Impressive. The young men that are acting in it, they're all good. It's a good story. It's a good feel-good story. There's a moment at the end where I had to make a joke so I wouldn't tear up. I was like, oh, so sweet. Oh. But really, I was like, that's actually very beautiful. Don't laugh. You've done it too. Alright, so anyway, that was cool. I also started watching the series on Netflix called Mindhunter. We're in season 2 now. Now, Mindhunter came out like 2 years ago, and it was incredible. It's about how the FBI learned to start identifying serial killers. Before a certain period, they just called them mass murders, and they just didn't know, they would catch the person after they did something sloppy and got caught after the fact, or they would have them confess because of something they got, they would just get to a point and they go, yeah, I did it. They wanted the notoriety. They wanted people to know that they were the bad guy. Because they got to a point and they were just like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done doing this. And so it follows the track of this one agent who sort of has it in his mind that in order to understand a killer, we have to interview killers. He's going to school and he's learning from some psychologists about how murderers think. And he gets the idea of, let's go interview some of the mass murderers that we have in prison. Maybe they can give us some insight into why they do the things they do and what their background is. And they create this behavioral science department of the FBI where they start profiling people. They start realizing, oh, there's a pattern we can follow, and we can probably find the person who's committing these crimes as they're doing them. Like, we may be able to go to an area where bodies are showing up, and we can look at our suspects of who's out there, and we can better identify who needs to be picked up because, maybe they're the ones, and we could stop this from happening. And season 1 is slow in the beginning. Like the first episode or 2 is kind of like, all right, when's it going to pick up? And then it picks up like crazy. And then by the last show, the last episode of that season, you're literally going to stand up on your couch and go, oh my God, it's intense. It's very intense. Season 2 so far is not letting me down. Season 2 picks up right where Season 1 left off. And we're introduced to more characters. We're introduced to more serial killers. They have one guy who I don't know for certain yet, but I think that he's going to wind up being the BTK killer. And they keep showing you glimpses of what he's doing, but not actually showing you what he's doing, if that makes any sense. Meanwhile, they're interviewing people like Charles Manson and a few of these other mass murderers who are, they have some insight into why they did the things they did, and they're basically trying to figure out how to catch this guy. And then another case comes up about mass killings in Atlanta of preteen kids. And I grew up around this time, and I remember this conversation, and the local TV stations used to end the broadcast where they would say, "Do you know where your kids are?" That's how they would end the broadcast at night. Whether it was 6 o'clock news or whatever. "Hey, this is so-and-so, blah, 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 TV. Do you know where your kids are?" And they would go off the air. What? Because it was a real thing. I remember having a conversation with my mom about stranger danger, and you got to be aware of this, and you got to look out for these people and whatnot. There was a time when we lived in Augusta, and I may have been maybe 8 or 9, somewhere around that range. And I was riding bikes with some kids that I had just met in the neighborhood, and at a certain point, a guy jumped out of a vehicle and he grabbed one of the kids that was with us. He went to grab for me, and I got away. Several of us were together on bicycles, and we got away. And I remember we talked to police about it. We talked to our parents about it, and we talked to police about it, and we didn't really have a description of the guy. It was so traumatic of an event, but I just remember going through that, and I remember we moved shortly after that. Of course, as a kid, they didn't talk about it much, like my mom and stepdad really didn't talk about it much, but I'm sure that the conversation came up of, this area is dangerous, we need to move away from here. So that was my only brush with that. But man, watching the show, my wife was sitting on the couch last night, not looking at it. She was trying to read stuff on her phone. And she was listening to it, and whenever there was a pause in between stuff, she would say, "I remember this as a kid. I remember this conversation coming up a lot. I remember the news. I remember all of this." And she's like, "I remember when they caught the guy." And I was like, "Really?" She's like, "This is good. They've done a good job of this." And she's Googling stuff while we're watching it, and she's like, "Oh my God, did you know that because of this show, they reopened one of these cases? Because them doing research for the show has unveiled something new about the case." I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, this is one of those instances where, art leans into real life, and, this has given them new fire, new insight into the whys of why people do what they do to each other." And listen, there's a lot of actors on this show that deserve awards for the people that they're portraying. And I know, listen, I saw the thing, the quote from Steven Spielberg where he's like, these actors and people from these shows on platforms like Netflix and Amazon, they don't deserve awards because they're not real. They're not real actors, and they're not real, it's not a real platform, or something like that. I forget exactly what he said. Basically, he wants all the accolades for people who make quote-unquote big-budget movies, not for people who make art, what he considers art, on Netflix and Hulu and all these other platforms. But you're wrong, Steven. You're wrong, buddy. Just because you hold the keys to the kingdom doesn't mean you're the only one allowed to do it. Anybody can do it. I can do it. I have a camera. I could make a movie. I could write a movie. I could make a movie. I could be the only star in the movie. I could do like a homegrown version of Castaway. I could do that. I could post it online. Nobody's stopping me from doing it. Nobody's stopping you from doing it. Listen, if you have an idea, you can do it. There is no stopping you right now. Your only limits are your imagination and your ability to figure it out. Steven Soderbergh filmed a big budget movie using an iPhone. And he's like, I think the future of movies is going to be iPhones. I was like, what? But he made a big budget movie using an iPhone. He just wanted to prove it could be done. He's not wrong. All it takes is a little bit of editing. If you watch people like Casey Neistat, you see the level of editing that you can do. Him or Dan Mace. You watch them on YouTube and you see the level of editing that is possible, and you go, wow, yeah, yeah, it's totally doable. All I gotta do is learn how to do that. All I gotta do is learn how to edit. All I gotta do is learn to shoot the right shot in the right angle. There's ways to do it. So anyway, this is what we call landing the plane. I'm going to land the plane of this podcast today. Ironically, by talking about getting on a plane. My wife and I are getting ready to go on vacation. Yay! I'm so excited. We are going to fly from Charlotte to Seattle, and we got a hotel up there. Going to wake up tomorrow and rent a car and go visit my boy, my oldest son, Draven. He has been living north of Seattle, and we're going to go visit him and hang out and have a good time. You know, he hasn't been a tourist of Seattle much. He hasn't seen hardly anything of it, and so, you know, we told him we'd pick him up and we go down, and we definitely want to see the Space Needle. I mean, that's kind of why you go to Seattle, to see that. That's one of the main attractions. It's on all of their t-shirts and whatnot. But, you know, we want to go see some stuff. We want to see what Seattle's got to offer. Definitely have a meal with them or two, and you know, hang out with my boy. Now that, you know, he's kind of a man-ish. I say man-ish. I mean, he's, you know, well, it's a long story. But anyway. And then after we hang out with him, we go on a cruise ship Friday, and we go on an Alaskan cruise. Now, for anybody who's got any crazy ideas about stopping by here, we do have our oldest kid living here. He's living upstairs, and he's here on a regular. And my neighbor Paul's keeping an eye on the place, and my neighbor Kyle's keeping an eye on the place. So don't get any wise ideas, you crazy folks out there. There will be people here, so just be aware. Plus, the only thing I have valuable is this laptop, and I'm going to have it with me. So everything else is just, you know, stuff you can get anywhere. It's nothing of value anyway. But anywho, I'm going to be posting some videos and trying to film a lot of what we see, but I'm also going to take time to just enjoy it. There's a lot of times that we film life and we don't experience life. And I'm going to do a bit of experiencing. I'm going to film a little bit, but I'm going to just take it in, because this is rare beauty that I'm probably not going to get to see again. And I want to experience as much of it as I can in the moment. My wife has asked me if I'm going to continue the podcast while we're on vacation, and I told her I don't know. So if you don't hear from me for a while, just know that I'm on vacation and I'll come back. If I'm able to do one, then give me a round of applause for my ability to figure out how to do it and have the time and the energy and the resources to do it, because I really don't know how I'm going to do it. But I can give it a shot, right? I ain't missed one yet. 2 a week now. This is episode 135. So I'm going to wrap this up. Go check out that stuff on Netflix. Go check out Bert doing the hip-hop dance. It's actually really good. And forward it to a lot of people, because it's funny. Oh, I did get my tickets to see Bert in October. So I'm coming to see you, big boy. Anyway, y'all take care. Thanks for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And until next time, y'all have a good one. Cue the cow. That's it. Cue the cow.